discourse, and the Rebbe says, Al pi bakoshes rabbim nimsar litvus. Al pi bakoshes rabbim, based on the request of a public. Who's the public? The public didn't even know that this MaMaar was based on the Rebbe Rashab's MaMaar. The answer could be two things. One thing which just occurred to me is that it's zochen lo'adam shalei befonov. So it's zochen lo'adam, it's a schus, the merit of the rabbim, that they would agree taka it should be published. If they know. The second inyan is that it's Mamayla. Abakoshes rabbim, whoever the rabbim are, the rabbeim sitting in Gan Eden, it was a rabbim that said a request of a rabbim, and it was published. So that's how we knew, and we found out that this MaMaar of the previous Shabbos was based on the Rebbe Rashab's MaMaar. And there were many, but you can count them on your fingers. About 10, 12 that the Rebbe published. There was also MaMarim the Rebbe said from the Hemshech Hayim Beis from 1912 that the Rebbe did not publish them. Deep MaMarim. And the older Chassidim were wondering what's going on here. Where are these MaMarim, like such deep MaMarim? They were based on Hayim Beis.
There are still MaMarim handwriting that's not published yet?
No. Now, generally, most of them are published, probably 99.9%. There's just sometimes a single MaMaar here there that the Rebbe never had. But generally, the Friedrich Rebbe always had the Ksovim.
What about everything that's stuck over in Russia?
It's not the Rebbe Rashab's library. It's not Ksovim, but it's more the collection of his Svarim. It's not writings. The Rebbe Rashab's Ksovim, the Friedrich Rebbe always had with him the manuscripts. And the Rebbe always had it in the library. And from Mem Gimel till Tafresh Pei. And eventually they were all printed over the course of 15 years. It started in 71. They started to print the Hemshech Samach Vov. In 77, late 76, the Rebbe asked if people want to partake in printing the Hemshech Hayim Beis. The Rebbe himself said he doesn't want to take responsibility, but if everyone is going to give $1, the Rebbe says, I'm putting in $1. Everybody wants to participate, so I'll know they're participating together with him. The Rebbe did not want anybody's name on it, because nobody should be exposed to anything from above that might, that they might not be pleased with it. It might be a kitrug, whatever it is. No name was put into the whole sefer. The ones that worked on it, the people that proofread it, people that published it. The Rebbe didn't want anybody to have responsibility.
I saw one sefer in 770, one of them, MaMaar, I'm not sure, just handwriting. It's a print of handwriting.
That's Teira Shmuel.
How come they didn't print it?
Okay, that's the Rebbe Marash MaMarim. The Rebbe Marash MaMarim were not printed, technically speaking, because it was easier offset. It was more economical, because they started to publish them in the 1940s, the late 40s.
That's fine, but we're talking about now. That was many years ago.
Now already the Rebbe in 1989, Tovshem and Test, the Rebbe ordered that everything should be typeset.
So they're still having these...
But the Friedrich Rebbe told the Rebbe, when the Rebbe asked how come it's not being publicized, published in typeset, so the Friedrich Rebbe answered, and in Yiddish the phrase was, Besser nehmen dem Pferd zum Brunnen, dem Pferd zum Brunnen with dem Brunnen zum Pferd. Better to take the horse to the well than the well to the horse. In other words, there should be some exertion, that a person should work to try to understand Chassidus. Learn Chassidus and understand Chassidus. That was one answer. 27 years later was it? 27 years later, Rav Menashe Klein, who's a Pesach, he answers questions in halacha and Jewish law. One of the big poskim today, one of the big the Jewish, he wrote responses. So he asked the Rebbe, why is it written, not typeset? I don't know if somebody put him up to ask the question, or there's some giving it, yeah. So the Rebbe answered, because there was a writer, a chassid, who had a very beautiful handwriting. The Rabbeim liked very much his handwriting, so they left it like that. So you have two different answers, depending who was asking. So, but 1989, over 20 years ago, the Rebbe ordered everything should be typeset. Everything that's in letter in fonts of Rashi or handwriting should be typeset. And a lot of these Svarim came published.
What was Chabad learning before all this stuff came out? There was enough, obviously.
Some of them copies of handwriting.
You're talking about before all these, what we're just speaking about. They constantly learn the Kotitera and the Parsha every week. which is discourses from the Balatanya, from Shnei Zalman Liadi on Chumash. Teira Eir and Likkutei Teira goes through the whole Chumash. They learned Tanya. They learned previous Rebbe's MaMarim that came out like booklets that came out for every Yom Tov in the 1940s. There was what to learn, but definitely there was no question that a person at a certain point in those years could have finished everything that was published. Could have finished everything that was published in Chassidus Chabad. Because in quantity there wasn't so much. There was the Mittel Rebbe Svarim Ateres Reish, the Rechayim, Shari Tshuva, but meshach of tens of years, a person that really wanted could have covered everything.
People didn't have handwriting to learn?
In the 60s and the 70s, it was people that came from Russia, they sent it into the Rebbe. But it wasn't, they didn't learn Mamish. I don't think it was
that the Rebbe had, he never gave, copies?
The Rebbe never gave copies of Ksav Yadin. The Rebbe, only when he published, the Rebbe would give a copy of a manuscript, a copy of it, not that alone, to the typesetters. And what did the typesetters do? I remember we were Bachrim in 770, in the 70s. They couldn't figure it out because the Rebbe, because economically speaking, when the Rebbe made, that's his set, the Rebbe's set of copies. The Rebbe himself made these copies. Mamish till the last penny, when the Frierdiker Rebbe would leave, the Rebbe tells the story in Tov Kislev, Tov Shalom Zayin, in late 76, that when the Frierdiker Rebbe would leave town, he would entrust him that he should take care of all these manuscripts. He should. So the Rebbe says, no, it says Bechlal that when it comes to a certain person that's a scholar, so another person, when he leaves books with him, Svarim with him, he should assume that he's going to be using the Svarim. So the Rebbe says, therefore I made copies from everything. So he also had copies from the Hemshech Hayim Beis, from the 1912 series of discourses.
What does that mean he made a copy? He wrote them himself?
Copied it. No, he copied it. Copy machine. But because of the expense, so there was certain Hemshechim, Rosh Hashanah and Shavuos, and you'll see it also. You'll see it, and sometimes when they print a copy of a manuscript in a Sefer MaMarim, it's the sample, you will see that the ones that are from Rosh Hashanah and Shavuos, unless the ones that are publishing get reduced they're more reduced than others, because there's more written. So the Rebbe had to fit more, so he reduced his copies. So it was harder to read. So you give it to a typesetter. So he says, I need something smoother than that. I'm not going to start looking through, although Lubavitch Chassidim, but it's difficult. So they would give the Bacharim to write over. Each one would write over a Maimar. He would get a Maimar, a copy of the manuscript, and would prepare it. And then they would give it to the typesetters. Sometimes there was also an Nisoyan for the typesetter to figure out the handwriting of that person. But Akopanim, it was bigger, it was easier. And that's how MaMarim were published, one after the other. One sefer after it like one was finished, started to prepare another. And in Meshach of 15 years, I think beginning of the 80s, by 83, 84, these were one of the last few books of discourse, of discourses that were printed. The Frierdiker Rebbe's MaMarim were also printed in the Rebbe's time, all the MaMarim. And then we started with the pace with the 1920s, and then the 1930s are being discovered now, coming out from Russia, 1931, 32, 33. This is from a container that they discovered about 10 years ago. So it's like, this is a time, and then the letters. Let's not forget the letters. The letters from the Alter Rebbe, Mittel Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, the first Rebbes of Chabad. The letters of the Rebbe Marash, the 5 volumes of the Rebbe Rashab's letters, the 5th Rebbe of Chabad. 14 volumes, 15 volumes of the previous Rebbe. And countless volumes, about 30 volumes, 28, 29 volumes of the Rebbe's letters, which is beginning of this, we're up to the beginning of the 70s. So it's really way ahead. Letters of the correspondence that the Rebbe wrote to people. Volumes. We have almost 30 volumes, and it's only in the beginning of the 70s.
It's not private?
Private in what sense? The names are not, the names are omitted, and the topics are used. I mean, they're very sensitive to it. I mean, the Rebbe gave them different rules and regulations.
Some people don't read it.
And then there's the Rishimas of the Rebbe. And then there's a Weltwit and Yonim that are being constantly, people are coming out. Is it a Yechidus? Is it other things that they heard from the Rebbe? There's always, there's new stuff, I mean, all along. So this is what the Rebbe says, Zocha Dereino. That's 6 generations. Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe, they didn't have it.
And don't forget, now Kehos is rewriting on a computer a lot of books.
Retypesetting.
Retyping.
Yeah, the retypesetting. Okay, so this is basically,
And
so
this
now
is
a
gonna be
person has
finished.
no excuse. They have to learn Teres Shmuel, they have to learn Teres Chaim,